I have something that I feel like I really need to talk about today, and that is in regards to Pentax's new film camera that they are currently in production of producing, which is a redundant way to say that, but they are producing a new film camera, and a few hours ago they released a video. It was while I was asleep, so I missed it. Hopefully I can make this video without a lot of editing and just get it out there for you guys to let you know my thoughts on this camera. But there's a few things that I feel like are a little bit of a stumbling block when it comes to this new camera, and just some things that might have missed the mark and potential reasons why the mark had been missed. Anyways, so Pentax announced a camera at the end of 2022 saying they wanted to produce a manual experience film camera, and one was going to be a point and shoot, one was going to be an SLR. Right now it seems to be that they're talking about the point and shoot. So at the beginning of this video that was published beginning of March, I suppose, March 1st, TKO came on and told us that they wanted to produce a film camera that young photographers could enjoy and reduce the barrier of entry into film photography. This is a noble endeavor because by securing new people in the world of film photography, it will help to ensure that film photography continues on forever. The first striking thing that I learned about this camera is that they decided to very gently let everyone know that this is a half-frame camera. And what I mean by gently is they started out by listing the reasons why they chose vertical format, which is how half-frame cameras pretty much exclusively operate, with a vertical viewfinder. And they told us, most people use smartphones these days to connect throughout the world and share stuff and view stuff. So we thought a half-frame camera would be perfect for this. And there's one other reason for going half-frame that I'll talk about later on in this video. But they landed on this because sharing would be a lot easier. The other reason that they decided to go with a vertical format camera is because they cited the price of film itself is expensive, and the price of developing film is expensive as well. The one thing that I kind of caveat that with, if you are a new film photographer, is some labs, most labs I would say, charge an extra fee if you shoot half frame, and they have to scan all 72 of those photos. So what you save in getting double the amount of shots might end up doubling your cost of scanning. So it might be a little bit less than a 36 exposure roll, but you'll still barely get a better price ratio. One thing that they cited for an artistic benefit of going vertical is that you can produce diptychs. For those of you that don't know what diptychs are, it's when you have two photos side by side and they're scanned in a way that displays both images or both photos in a single image. And they cited this as a way that photographers could express themselves and use this format artistically. Yeah, I think that's a good thing that they mentioned that in the video, and it builds a little bit more of idea hunting into people that are prospectively looking at this camera. Along with the theme of this being for new film photographers, they really banked into new film photographers using this camera. They wanted to use a kind of like a program mode where it would be fully automatic and the exposure would be set for you. They said they wanted to have a aperture control and a shutter control while having a full manual mode, which I'm not sure what that exactly entails. After hearing about their focusing system, I imagine this might be kind of a very basic way to control exposure in those aperture and shutter modes. I don't think this will be a very fleshed out camera. It'll be pretty basic. But those shooting modes should be controlled via dials, much like this camera where you flip between shutter mode and aperture priority. I don't think there will be an actual ring on the camera where you can adjust shutter or aperture, or shutter for that matter, but we'll see how they plan to implement that. This is the part that gave me pause when listening to this update video. And it's kind of frustrating for me because the whole video that they are announcing, this camera for beginner film photographers, they're pitching it as this is going to be the introduction for people into film photography, and this is going to help them get proper exposure, experience film the best way that is possible for an entry level. And then they dropped this bombshell that made me turn my head around and, ask what were they thinking. And they landed on a zone focus operation system, which I'll take the liberty of telling you what zone-based focusing is. Essentially, I have this camera here, and on the lens there are markings that tell you how many meters or feet away from the camera, technically away from the film plane, is where your focus will be set. And what Pentax is saying they're going to put in this camera is no way to preview focus, that they are going to be using maybe a close-up. I'm not sure if he means that it will have a clicked close, medium, and far range, or if it will be just markings on a barrel that will say, it will have the classic single person silhouette, a group shot silhouette, a mountain silhouette, and an infinity perchance, or maybe a flower for macro on the closer end of that focusing. But that's where I hopped off the train of this is for beginners, and I hopped onto the train of this is not going to be a good first experience for people that maybe don't know a lot about focusing, and they're going to be very disappointed when a lot of their photos come back out of focus, and they're gonna blame that on film. I mean, it's a popular thing that people think film is lower quality and it's crappy. You see it all the time in the Instagram presets. They just boost the shadow noise and add a bunch of crappy, thick grain. But yeah, I'm hoping that if Pentax releases another camera that's more fully fleshed, that it will have a more robust focusing system, maybe the ability to use Pentax K lenses, which are out there and abundant. So that was a kind of a disappointing thing to hear about this camera. So where does it land in my books? Personally, from what has been shared so far, if it is going to be as cheap as $30, good luck even buying groceries for $30. If this camera is anywhere near $60, I would probably not even consider it. You can buy very nice, unused or lightly used point and shoot cameras that were produced in the late 90s and the early 2000s for very cheap. Most of those cameras were purchased right before the digital era. They maybe had a dozen rolls of film ran through them on a couple family trips, and then they sat in someone's closet for a decade and a half. And now they're practically new and ready to be used. So those can be found for potentially cheaper than this camera. The last thing I wanted to mention about this half-frame camera that Pentax is planning on releasing, I would just like to compare it to the Kodak Ektar point and shoot that they have. That is an insane value if you plan on using a film camera for more than one vacation. It'll be interesting to see how this new Pentax camera squares up to that. It doesn't have robust focusing either, but it also doesn't have a lot of the mechanisms that Pentax is promising in this camera. So I anticipate that it will be a lot cheaper, the Kodak point and shoot, that is. But Pentax is hopeful that other camera manufacturers will produce film cameras. I do not see that happening at all. Canon is dying to get rid of their old DSLR lenses, and they're dying to stop. I mean, they just stopped producing the EOS 1N a few years ago. I don't think they're going to enter that space again, given how much hype is around new cameras and digital cameras. A little bleak, but I think Pentax is carrying the heavy horse. The heavy horse? I don't even know what I'm trying to say. They're carrying a heavy weight here. Anyways, it's time for film. Pentax, Pentax, Pentax. Film photography is maybe coming back. It made a surge there in 2022. 2021, 2022. I don't think it's coming back the way it was though. I think I'm gonna have to edit this video. Anyways, leave your comments. Leave your ideas in the comment section below, and I will maybe reply to your comment, add some insight. Maybe it'll get mentioned in a future video. Anyways, that's all for me now. Bye.